How's it going, guys? Anxious Cynic back again with another Mine-imator tutorial. So another thing that you guys have been asking about is how to walk upstairs. I've been trying to get your guys' suggestions for a while now. It's just taking a little bit of time. I apologize, but finally got around to this one. And as you may have seen in the opening scene, I showed a couple of very brief glimpses into how to do it a couple of different ways. What I'm going to focus this tutorial on is a separate way to do it, but I figured I would compress them all into this one video so you guys could get an example of how something like this might be done. For the skeleton here, as you may have noticed, it's a very simple thing that I did. Here's the skeleton keyframes down here. So let's go ahead and watch what the skeleton does. It's basically just the canned run within Mine-imator, just to make it pretty easy, but you could most likely use any run cycle or walk cycle that you want to. And the basic premise of this technique is speed generally. A lot of times when you're doing an animation, it can be difficult to realize that speed is actually something you can use to your advantage. A lot of times you feel like things should be slower, move more realistically, and it ends up making them look kind of choppy and weird. So speed is your friend here. As you can see, the skeleton is just doing the same run, and then he just switches up. And the speed at which he's going kind of makes it just look like he runs up the stairs. There's no real difference in how he's running. It's just simply the fact that it looks like he's realistically making progress on the stairs. And the way that I accomplished that is I did my usual parenting to the folder technique. And when he gets to the stairs, what I had happen is you can see these two keyframes here on the folder. So he makes it over here. And then when he gets here, since I just used the folder to move him from point A to point B, I can use the actual skeleton body, and I lifted him up a bit. Like, you may have to play with that to get it to work the way you want to, but I actually rotated him. You can see here it's at negative 24.56 exactly, and that way I don't have the weird jumpiness that you might have between keyframes, because the folder is moving him, and then I can animate his position a bit to work with the stairs a little better. As you can see from this frame here, he's not actually stepping on the stair realistically, but when it's moving, you don't really notice that much. So, you could try to be more precise with it, but this is just a quick and easy way to get that. So that's pretty much all you got to do. Like, you just have the folder, move him from point A to point B, and then you can make it change the body position here so that, it's realistic the way he runs up. Obviously, you could probably tilt the body forward to keep him more in a up and down look, but I just figured for this kind of action-y scene, him tilting back and running up the stairs was very Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon-ish. So the more advanced move, you might say, is for the running up a block that we had my Anxious Steve character here. So let's go ahead and take a look at him. Same thing with the folder here. But he runs up. That's just the normal canned run with a little bit of frames in between that I did there to make it look like he's getting prepared to step up. And this is very similar to the technique that I showed you in the advanced walk cycle, where you move the character a little bit by little bit, and then you can copy those frames. If you haven't seen that tutorial, I recommend you watch it so you'll understand this one a bit better. In any case, this one I just figured, it's a block, and blocks are pretty big, and it's kind of difficult, to mimic that realistically. If you're going for the look of the Minecraft game, then they kind of just plop around them with the very basic walk cycle that's in the game. But if you want to make it look a little more realistic, then you could have him do this. And this is basically just a motion that I copy and pasted, where his arms come down, first they lift up. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this. He brings his arms up and then he pushes down, and then I had the keyframes kind of do like this pushing motion here. He pushes off, and then I use the folder to raise him up. And then I kind of have him in this slight jump position, because once again, this is something that I made happen relatively quickly. It's a fast motion because he's obviously, the theme is that he's trying to get up there as quick as possible, but it also eliminates a lot of the flaws that you might notice in a slower motion. So it's just a really quick and easy way to make something like this happen without any of the flaws sticking out too bad. And it's basically, I can't talk. Basically just him doing that, propelling himself upwards until he gets all the way to the top. We've got a bit of a thunderstorm going on right now, so if you hear thunder in the background, I apologize. Anyway, that's pretty much it for that. A basic coverage there of how I accomplished that. You can use pretty much any method you want to, but this is just the 2 examples that I had. And what we have over here is what was not in the cutscene, and we're going to try to make just a basic walking up regular stairs, similar to the way of the skeleton, but using the technique that we use for the anxious Steve over there. So what I have here is just some stairs, nothing too fancy. Steve walks up to him, and we want him to go up, right? So let's go ahead and zoom in on our timeline so we can work with our keyframes a little better here. And let's see, we want him to take a step, right? So come here, and since he leads with his right foot, we're going to go ahead and start with the left. So this is probably going to use the advanced walk cycle technique that I talked about. Once again, you can probably find other ways to do this. This is just right off the top of my head how you might accomplish it. But that's what we're going to go with for now. So again, if you haven't seen it, better check it out. So let's go ahead and just create all of our keyframes here. And he's basically going to try to bring his leg up to a bend. So we want him to kind of do it realistically. Unfortunately, the Steves are a little bit rough on their height to stair ratio. It's quite a big step you have to make just to get on some stairs, man. So let's go ahead and move him forward, something like that. And we want the right leg to be coming back, something like this. Make sure it stays pretty, yeah, that's pretty much. So the problem you have here is that, as you can see, the leg is going through the dang old thing there. So in order to remedy that, like this, I don't know if it'll be a problem as you continue, but it's definitely an issue here on the first step. So what we might want to do is actually have the leg come up before he does the full step. So let's actually move this back. We're going to copy this position. So at this point, he goes like this, right? Let's see what we can do here to eliminate that. Now, this is also happening very quickly here. We can slow this down a bit. Let's see if it looks better. That looks a little too fast. Let's try about 7 frames. That's not too bad. All right, and what we want to do is have the right leg only begin with this movement here. Let's go ahead and copy and paste this over. Now this, you may not have to follow this part step by step. I'm just trying to give you guys the full run through of how, I might accomplish something like this. So let's go ahead and make a keyframe there. And what we're going to do is try to bring the leg in. There we go. It looks a little bit better. So you keep the leg bent a little bit. So it does still kind of go through, but it's not too terribly bad. And what we might do is actually kind of bring it up and maybe come out a bit like this so that he moves and it kind of bends with it. Doop. Something like that. Again, it depends on how close up you show this and whatnot. But, it might help you a bit to do something. All right. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm going to actually move him forward just slightly here and also take the right leg and move it back just slightly so that there's still some motion. Maybe a little bit more. There you go. And let's see if we can bring this back a bit. It's not 100% perfect, but you get the idea. All right, so now is the tricky part. Now at this point, he needs to lift up and his leg needs to straighten out with the motion. So what I'm going to try to do here is keep up with how many frames I'm using. If I put 7 frames on this, that's going to bring us up to frame 49. Let's hope that this timing works out. We'll see how it goes. But what we want to do is bring the body up to about, I think it's going to be about 8, since this is half of a block. And we need that to come down and straighten out. So it's also going to be moving it forward, something like this. Right about there, maybe. And what we want is left leg to straighten out and come back down. So if it does like this, then you'll see it does that. But what we want to do is actually keep that leg, that foot, in the same position as it was. So let's try something like that. And let's actually see if we can tweak this a little bit and give it some realistic motion here. Something like that. You could probably use some keyframes here as well. For instance, at this point, like, see how it's going more quickly and thus going through. So we could try, let's just see, putting ease out or ease in, as it were. So you can do stuff like that. I'm not going to mess with it too much. I'm just going to try to show you guys the techniques. You can see it kind of makes it look a little jerky. So I would recommend really just working with your keyframes and leaving it linear as much as possible. Once again, this is hopefully going to happen fast enough to where you're not really going to notice that. As you can see, it generally will happen quickly enough to where that's not that much of a problem. So once again, it's up to you. You can tweak it as much as you want and try to make it look super delicious. All right, so now we of course need the front leg to be doing something. So we're gonna have it doing similarly as we did the other one. We're gonna just try and see if we can do kind of a smooth motion with each of these. So as that one comes up, this one would come up as well. But of course, we have this little problem here. So let's go ahead and bring the leg back, bend it just a bit more. Let's see what that looks like. It's not too bad. Alrighty. And we can try, I don't know if this is gonna look good. Keep that leg bent a little bit more. Once again, it's going through it. This isn't gonna be 100% perfect. Just know that you can do it however you like. Alright. So we do that and his other leg comes up. Boop, boop. All right, so now that we've got those 2 steps made, then we can try and double this and make it go like by copy pasting. The only problem with this is that the first step is kind of unique compared to how the rest of them will probably be. So we're gonna try it without doing any other tweaks. We're just gonna see if it's possible to get this to copy paste smoothly and easily for us. So let's give that a try. Let's see here. What we want is to have, at this point in time, we want the same thing to happen that happened from right here. So we're gonna have to copy this keyframe and put it on the right leg, which according to this would be about 4 frames. Something like that. And then as well, we have to copy both of these. Whoops. On the right leg, of course. And let's see, I think that's something like that maybe. Alrighty. And for the other leg, we want to copy these other motions here. Something like that. Let's copy that and paste them up here. It's not too terrible. Let's see here. Alright, so at the point where he comes up like this. Let's see how this works. I'm having a bad feeling about this, guys. Let's see. Let's go ahead and try to position him normally. Doop. Alright, hang on. Let's just get rid of these. Jeez. Alright, so what we've ended up with here is pretty much the same move as before, but right here we have it kind of digging in a bit. So we may want to, actually didn't mean to create that. Okay, so we may want to tweak this a bit. So what I would do here, to bring this up, then at this keyframe, let's go ahead and have the leg kind of come up a bit more. Something like that. Let's see how that looks. There we go. We could also possibly, right at the start of this, go ahead and cause them to raise a bit more with our character. Something like that. That's not too bad. Notice that he also slides a bit here, so we could actually use this keyframe and bring him back a tad. There we go. That's looking pretty good, man. So this one is a kind of a complicated movement. It's a little bit more difficult to do the copy paste and thing like I was talking about. But you technically can do it. It's just a little bit more tricky. So now that we've got that one there and this one's here, we should hopefully, let's see if we can make this happen. Let's see if we can do the old copy paste here. All right, so obviously the issue here is that we got to bring it up. So let's go ahead and do like this. And this would be what, 24? Something like that. Bring it like that. And once again here we have this issue of it going through, so we can add a keyframe there, like right when it starts to go down. And then we'll come forward and right around here where it seems to be down the most, we'll go ahead and lift him up a tad. And once again he slides forward a bit, so let's go ahead and drag that back. And there he goes. That is the process, children. Alright, so let's just take a look at this and kind of get an idea of what the whole thing looks like without all the derpiness. I apologize. Doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look too bad at all. You might would want it to go maybe a little bit faster. But that, it really depends on the timing and how you're trying to do things. Of course, we didn't animate his arms, so let's go ahead and do that real quick, and we'll see what the finished product looks like. Alright guys, so we went ahead and just edited the arms. I'm not going to worry about doing every little thing, but the arms I think really help to sell the motion a little bit better, so you could have him, of course, look up. Let's actually just do that real quick. Let's have him look up like he's going up the stairs, man. Alright. There we go. Alright guys, I think that's going to pretty much do it. I apologize if the tutorial was a little bit bumpy. It's just, this is one of those things where it's a little bit trial and error depending on the timing of your scene and the setup and everything. But once you get the rhythm down, it's not too hard to replicate the movement. It may not be quite as simple as copy and pasting, especially here where I try to do a little bit more advanced and show you how to go from a walk into it. But this should hopefully give you the skills and the ideas that you need to accomplish it. It doesn't look too bad. You could refine it a good bit, I think, but that should pretty much do it. I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned something. And you may have noticed at the end of our scene up here, we had a bit of a little bit of a fight. Little bit of a fight scene that occurred at the very end when our guys arrive. He hops up here. They look at each other. Things are getting serious, man. And then they run up to each other. They start punching each other and things like that. So I've been asked a good bit to do a fight tutorial, like how to do a fight scene. This is obviously quite simple. A very, very simple, very non-action-y fight scene. I'm going to be honest, I've never really done fight scenes, as you may know if you watch my animations, and I don't really have that much interest in doing them. I don't really find them that entertaining to do, which maybe that's kind of an excuse on my part. So I'm not really that familiar with them, but I decided to give it a little try as a little hint at the end of this tutorial that I will try to cover that, at least some of the basics of how you might go about that. There are a lot of other animators, if I can say the word, that are much better at fight animations, and they actually make animations for their own channels, fight animations for their own channels. Jesus Christ, I can't talk. And, you know, they would probably be a much better authority on the issue than me. But if you guys want to learn just some of the basics of how to create some of these, you know, basic movements of hits and reactions, then I'll try to cover that in a future tutorial. Probably not the next one, but in the future. Then let me know if you want to see that. And that's going to be it for today's video. Sorry about the bumpiness of everything and how, you know, clunky things went. And for the inability to talk. But I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to hit that like button. Comment, let me know what you think. Give me suggestions for future tutorials. Share this video with your friends and your family and your pets. And I will see you in the next video.